So you want to be a power lifter? Cool, me too. Let's go on this journey together. I am going to be starting my full powerlifting prep next week, and I wanted to kind of lay out that program for you guys to allow you to see what I do, see the considerations, and be able to follow along with me. Now, a lot of people think that powerlifting training is super simple. It's just keep adding weight to the bar as you get stronger. Keep doing singles, keep doing sets of 3, sets of 5, go up in weight and get stronger. While that is somewhat true, there are a lot of other considerations that we have to take into account when we're building out an entire program and considering weeks and weeks of training. There are frequency aspects, there's volume aspects, there's the recovery cost. Do we need to deload? All these kind of different things that I'm going to show you how we build out in a program, and whether you want to be a competitive powerlifter or you just want to get really, really freaking strong, then follow along. And I think we got a lot of good stuff on this episode of the Lifting Cues podcast so that you can build out a program that works for you to get you as strong as humanly possible. And I'm going to document my entire process going all the way through until that meet in November so that you guys can see exactly how it goes and see how this program plays out. I'm going to lay it out for you at the beginning. Any adjustments that need made along the way, we'll see how much progress we're able to make based on, kind of what I project to be able to do. And then we'll just keep kind of rolling it through from there. And if you guys really follow along, you get a free program out of this. So welcome to this episode of the Lifting Cues podcast. I am your host, Coach Quinn, aka Coach Q. I'm an online and in-person fitness coach that specializes in training and nutrition plans for strength and muscle building. I've been a lifter for over half of my life, and now in my 30s, I'm on this journey to becoming a competitive power lifter, and I'm going to take all of that experience, obviously, especially in this episode, take all of that experience, roll it up, and give you my best lifting cues to get you as strong as possible or make you the best power lifter that you can be. So if those are your goals, follow along, take some notes, like, rate, subscribe to the podcast if you enjoy this episode, and let's really dive into how we build out powerlifting training and a full powerlifting prep for training. As it relates to this powerlifting meet in general, I'm going to be talking very specifically about my prep for this next meet. So I'm going to be starting at 13 weeks out from the meet to start my training. So usually you see programs in 4 to 8 to 12 week, sort of blocks or, time frames. So why 13 weeks? Well, that last week of training will definitely be some form of a taper week. And I also wanted to leave myself at least one deload in there, maybe 2. So I wanted to leave those optional so that if I need it, I can take a week and pull the volume back, maybe pull the load back, whatever that looks like, whatever I need at the time. So I don't really plan my deloads out. I'm going to do them based on feel. That's how I like to deload. I don't like to plan deloads because, look, if we don't need it, why detrain just because we're supposed to, because a book told us that we had to. So I'm not going to plan any in, but if it so happens, I know I have a trip in the middle of this, at least a small 4-day trip. So maybe that could be a deload week if I can kind of fit that in. So that's why I kind of plan it out in this 13-week cycle. And I decided to go with this so that I have time to be able to break up my training and I can at least get 4-week blocks. So I want to make sure that we're able to make progress in each block so that I can break it out into at least 4 weeks doing the same thing and be able to make progress. We talked about in the last episode with exercise selection and how often we need to switch things up, that you want to do things for at least 4 to 6 weeks to be able to learn, adapt, and then make progress and make sure that you are making progress. So I know my body pretty well now. If I need to adjust in between there, I probably can, but I'm going to try and set myself up with at least a few 4 to 5 week blocks to make sure that I'm able to get enough training. And I know from my last powerlifting meet that about 5 to 6 weeks of truly heavy training was about all my body wanted to handle. Then I did have to pull it back. I took one deload last time, and I think I did a 12-week prep. So I wanted to leave myself room to do, probably a 5-week block, maybe a week of a little bit less, sort of a deload, give myself at least another 5 weeks than before the taper week that I would need to. And we'll talk about how that's going to work, going down the line. So when it comes to powerlifting in general, how do we start out building the program? Well, obviously, when you compete in powerlifting, there are 3 main lifts that we need to focus on. So you are focused on the barbell back squat, the barbell bench press, and the deadlift. Those are the 3 lifts that you have to master and be your best at and be your strongest at to compete. Those are the lifts. We know that strength is specific, so that is going to be the bulk of this program. And we know for strength, we want to get a minimum of 6 working sets a week, and this is on the lower end. We can do 3 to 6 in like the minimum effective dose sort of strength training, but we want to try to get probably 9 to like 15 hard working sets of these exercises per week to make sure that we can make enough strength gains. Now, I am not going to be doing 9 to 15 hard sets of competition style of these lifts. So the competition style that I'm talking about for barbell squat, that is hitting full depth and coming back up. So hip crease below the knee, depends on your judge. But if you can get low enough, you can get parallel slightly below, you're pretty good. So that's usually about what I aim for, but that is a competition squat. A competition bench is a 1-second pause on the chest, again, depending on your judge, but you want to be able to make sure you get that 1-second pause, hold it, and then press up. And then the deadlift is just being able to pick the bar up to full lockout. So those are the competition lifts. So when I talk about I'm doing competition squat in a day, that means I am doing a regular squat to my depth and right back up at the tempo that I will be doing in competition. For bench, that means I'll be doing a 1-second pause, and then deadlifts, I'll be picking the bar all the way up, just straight up. So that's what I'm talking about when we talk about competition lifts. Now, I won't be doing, like I said, 9 to 15 hard sets. And when we talk about hard sets for strength, that is a minimum of 6 to 7 RPE for a strength set. Most of them will probably be more in the 7, 8, 9 range. You really don't need to hit super, super high intensities for strength, and you don't want to too often. So we're going to touch some high intensities, but majority of my work will probably be in that 6 to 7 range, because when we train for strength, we have to train with maximal loads. This is why we train in low rep ranges. And also when you train with maximal loads above 80% of your 1RM or whatever that might look like, whatever gets you to that 6 to 7 intensity, whatever those loads are, they're going to be significantly heavy. So we don't want to push super, super close to failure because of the recovery cost. So we have to take recovery cost into effect whenever we lay out a program for powerlifting or for strength in general, because again, strength is specific and it is load dependent. We need to lift with heavy loads and we need to be able to recover from that work. So being able to keep the intensity a little bit lower will be good. Also, if you are pretty proficient in your movement, you are a experienced lifter, an experienced strength athlete, this is where you can pull the volume back a little bit, because assuming that you've gotten to a point where you are significantly strong and the loads that you are lifting with are significantly heavy. So 80% of your 1 rep max is considerably difficult. Assuming that this is the case, you probably have also, like I said, gotten proficient in the movement. So because when we talk about strength being specific, that's because it is motor skill dependent, neurological dependent, it is psychological in nature, even before just, your muscle mass and force production. So you have to learn how to do the movement. As your body learns how to do the movement, you develop the neurological connections. You're able to transfer force from, your muscle to your tendon to your joint and be able to actually produce the force necessary in the movement pattern necessary. And as you get better at that, you get stronger and stronger before even, like I said, putting on that muscle mass. So if you are already proficient, there's only so much better you can get. You now just need to continue to adapt under heavier and heavier loads. So that's where we can also take that volume back. So you'll see kind of how I play with volume a little bit as we go through what the program actually looks like. All right, enough rambling. So what does this program look like? What does all that stuff that you just said actually mean? Okay, so when I am breaking out a powerlifting program or any program in general, the first thing I need to figure out is, one, how many days a week can and do I want to work out? So when it comes to powerlifting training, we have to be able to fit in, like I said, that certain amount of volume that we want. Now, because the load is higher, we may not be able to do all of that volume on one single day. If you think about doing, 6 to 9 sets of hard barbell back squats in one day, that is going to be very, very taxing on your body, your mind. It may affect the rest of your training for the week. So we have to manage volume day to day as well as week to week to be able to make sure that we are able to recover and that we are able to train the next lift with as much, intensity and strength as we need to. So if I barbell back squat on Monday and say you did all of your sets of barbell back squat for the week, now on Wednesday I have to deadlift. Am I really going to be ready for that in 48 hours after that many hard barbell back squats? Probably not. I might not even be ready by Friday. So I need to figure out what that volume looks like and how I can break it up so that I am able to recover and it really works out for me in that way. So what I'm going to do is I love to work out 4 days a week. I like to weight train at least 4 days a week. That works for my schedule. That works for me mentally. I'm able to break things up in a way that I really enjoy. And enjoyment in your program and it being easy for you to fit it into your schedule and work it into your life mentally, physically, emotionally is super, super important. A lot of people, I think, overlook this, especially when it's like, oh, well, I'm just a power lifter. So I do powerlifting training. I only train 3 days a week, even though I'd like to train more, or I could train more, or, it's too much volume in those 3 days. I'd like to break it up, but it's like, this is just powerlifting training. There is no one single way to do anything, and not considering your psychological factors and your lifestyle in the program that you design is a huge mistake, and it's a big overlook. And I think a lot of coaches and trainers even overlook this as well. The first question I ask any single person who works with me when we are building their program is, how many days a week can you work out? And this is every single freaking week, week after week after week. How many days a week can you work out? Not how many do you want to. What works right now for your schedule? If you tell me 2 days, great. You tell me 3, great. You tell me I want to work out 7 days a week, I'll probably tell you you don't have to, but we can figure that out. We can get you movement every single day. But if you try to commit to something that you are not ready for, you are going to miss out on volume. So making sure it is something that you are going to be able to fit into your schedule, that you want to fit into your schedule, and that you will enjoy doing. If you don't enjoy training 6 days a week, great. You don't have to. But whatever your goals are, we have to try and account for that in the days that you have. So you want to be a power lifter, you want to be strong. I'd like to see you get at least 3 days in the gym. We could make it work with 2, but again, with minimum effective dose training, I've talked about this a good bit, so we can kind of figure out how to do it. But I'm going to show you how I do it in my breakdown here. So I'm going to do 4 days a week. 3 of those days are going to be power lifting, straight up focus. That is going to be the absolute focus. It is going to be based around the 3 main lifts, and we're going to do a competition style of each of those on that day, and then some accessory work for, just the rest of the body and the way that I like to train. And I'm going to add a fourth day in. I want to add some explosive work. I'm going to add some jumps, try and maybe do some upper body plyometrics. That is another day where I will add in my extra pressing. I want to press a lot in this prep because my bench press has been terrible. My shoulder finally feels good. I want to make sure that my pressing gets enough volume in this prep. So I'm going to make sure that I do that. So I'll fit some of that in on my extra day, and then just some of the extra accessory work that I want to throw in. I'm going to throw that in on that fourth day because for me, that's fun. That's what I like to do. That's how I like to train. I'll be fully honest with you guys. I don't love training for powerlifting. I don't love just lifting heavy and just doing like big compound lifts, not getting a ton of back work. So I want to make sure that I still can get in the work that I want. But again, we're going to take in volume considerations to make sure that we can recover. It's crazy that I picked a sport that, look, I love being strong. I love lifting heavy, but I hate going into the gym knowing I'm not going to get a pump. That sounds like such a meathead bro-y thing to say, but it's just the truth. And if I'm not motivated to go into the gym, what's the point of, I'm not going to be able to train as hard. I'm not going to be as intentional, as motivated. So it's going to be like, okay, I got to go in and squat and bench press today. So what's that mean? It means my legs are going to be really tired, and so is my upper body. Like my shoulder's probably going to hurt a little bit, and that's about it. I'm not going to get a good pump. So what's the point? But if I know that after that, I have some accessory movements that I can do to get a nice pump and feel great, and then I leave, I feel really good leaving the gym. I got my strength work in. I feel great about that. I leave with a pump. Boom, we're good to go. As long as I can recover from it, then we're good. All right. So we have these 4 days. So how do they break out individually? How much volume am I doing per lift, and what kind of accessory work am I doing? All right, so day one. Day one is squat day, always. I love to start the week with squats. It is my favorite lift. I also like to just get it out of the goddamn way. I'm just going to say it. Like, I like to get the squats out of the way. If I know I have my hardest thing done for the week, I don't have to hold anything back in the rest of the week because I know squats are coming up, or I don't have to be like, I'm just not feeling my best for squats. Squat is the lift that takes the most out of me. So maybe it wouldn't be best to do it at the beginning of the week, but also I want to be the freshest for it. So I'm always going to start my week with squats, whatever day that works out to be, usually Monday. Try to get a lift in on Monday after a rest day on Sunday. So I'm going to start with squats. The way I'm going to break this down is I am going to start, my working sets are going to be 1 top single, a back off, 2 back off sets of 3, and then a back off set of 5. So this gives me 4 working sets of squats. That top single is probably going to be around a 9.5 RPE. It's going to be heavy. It's going to be hard. I'm only doing 4 sets. My back off sets are not going to be as difficult. They're not going to be at the same intensity. So I want to make sure that that single gets heavy. Then those back off sets of 3, probably around 80 to 85%, depending on how I'm feeling that day. And then the back off set of 5 is more like a 70, 75%. This is just a set to feel really good, make sure my form is great, even when I'm a little fatigued, and, just kind of crush out some really good quality squats with a set of 5 to finish it out. And that will be my squat training for the day. Now, I think about warming up for that. I'm going to do a little bit of warm up, obviously. I feel like you always need something. So if, my knee has been giving me a little bit of trouble, I'll probably do some stuff to warm up my knees. I like to get my hamstrings and my adductors involved. And then it's just light sets of squats working all the way up to that single. So first single of prep is going to be 455. I did that this week. So I know I can hit it. I wasn't able to hit 475 yet, so I kind of want to give myself room to grow. So I'm going to hit 455 again. It felt really, really good. So I'm going to go ahead and hit that again for my single. So to work up to a 455 single, how would I do that? I would squat the bar 10 times. I would probably do a couple of movements. I would squat 135 8 times. I'd do a couple of movements. I'll squat 225 6 times. Do a couple of movements. I'll squat 315 3 to 4 times. Do a couple of movements. Probably hit 405. And then I'll jump right to 455 and hit my single. I'll hit 405 for a single. If that feels really great, which it should, I'll hit 455 for a single, and then I'll back it off to my other sets. So that's about the way to go. And the rest in between those warm-up sets is 30 seconds to a minute. Like, I'm working through this warm-up. It shouldn't be hard. It should be very easy. You should be picking weights and rep ranges that you can hit very, very easily, keeping the intensity maybe around 5 or 6. And that warm-up never changes. The only thing that'll change is as that single gets a little heavier, maybe I add another jump in between, just so I'm not jumping from 405 to what will be like 475 by the end. Maybe I'll hit 435 in between there. So that jump is not quite as large. And it's not quite as shocking when you pick that up. Because if you've ever, jumped up 50, 60, 70 pounds on a squat, it feels significant, especially when you're squatting at like a 9 RPE. So I don't want to have to do that. So that'll be what the warm up will look like for basically every lift. I have different weights, obviously, for each lift and different rep ranges that I hit, but just whatever makes you feel good going into that. I hit my squats on day 1. Now I'm going to do a bench press accessory movement. So I hit competition squat for 4 working sets. Now, I could do competition bench. I have done this in the past. I've done squat and bench at the same time, but I'm going to try out something different of doing each competition lift on its own day so I can really, really put that focus into it. So I'm going to do some block pressing. So putting a block on the bar so it doesn't come down as far, shortening the range of motion to hopefully overload it and not put quite as much stress on, my chest and my shoulder in this case. Just really work on that top end of the movement. Again, shortening that range of motion, help with the recovery cost. Again, when I do back squats, it's a highly taxing event for me, especially when I lift heavy. So I want to take everything else in this workout and really pull it back. So I'm going to work up to 3 working sets of 6 for this. Should be around a 7, 8, maybe a 9 RPE on these because, again, it is a shortened range of motion. It shouldn't leave me feeling quite as sore, so I can push the intensity hopefully a little bit more. And just trying to work to overload that top end of the movement with that. And that will give me 3 sets of pressing. So 3 sets of my bench press work for the week. So I'm at 4 sets of squats and 3 sets of bench. Then I'm going to do a little bit of accessory work just to finish the workout out, again, because I enjoy it. Now, I'm going to do more of a HIIT style training with my accessory work. So on this day, I'm going to do side lunges. This is something that I'm hoping will help me maintain some good hip mobility and abductor and adductor strength in my squat. This is something that I haven't ever added. I'm always like, I should probably do side lunges. I should get more of that strength and hopefully help my mobility and help my depth a little bit, but I never add it in. So I'm going to add it here. And I want it to be more of like a mobility exercise and not necessarily something that's super intense. Again, when I squat, it is very taxing. So my leg movement, I want to be much, much easier. So I'm going to focus more on depth, mobility. But what I'm going to do is, like I said, kind of a HIIT style of training. So I'm only going to do 3 sets of these. I'm going to do it a set of 12 at maybe a 6 or 7 RPE, a set of 8 at maybe a 6 or 7 RPE, and then I'm going to push a set much closer to failure, whatever that looks like. So probably take the same weight that I do for a set of 8, and I'll probably just do that for as many as possible on the last one, kind of burn it out. I'm going to superset that with some lat pull downs. That's how that superset after that will break out. The lat pull downs will work out the exact same way. I'm going to go overhand lat pull downs just because, again, really like to make sure that I'm working my lats, working my back, and just getting that work in. Same thing, set of 12, set of 8, set of as many as possible. Then I want to make sure I get some tricep work in, some lengthened tricep work, because I'm going to be doing a ton of pressing. So my shortened head of the tricep will get plenty of work in that pressing. I want to make sure that whenever I do tricep work, I get some long head work, just to keep, again, my physique, something that I like to do, and just make sure that I maintain that long head musculature so that I can use it when it is needed. So I'm going to do skull crushers, same way. Set of 12, set of 8, set of as many as possible. Again, keeping those 12 and 8s. It's more acclimation sets, one burnout set, more of, like I said, a hit, high intensity training style. And then I'm going to do just some hanging leg raises, 3 sets of as many as possible for my abs. So that is going to be day 1. And then I do like hanging leg raises for the hip flexors a little bit as well. I think that helps, and just to decompress my spine by hanging. So that's why I like to add those in. Okay, day 2. So this will either be on Tuesday, the day after the squat day, or on a Wednesday, depending on how my schedule works out. It shouldn't affect me too much. This is going to be a bench press day, so I shouldn't be too sore from just block pressing. And with it being more of an upper body lift, hopefully there won't be a residual effect from squats. So I'll do competition bench press on this day. So that means a 1-second pause for my working sets and then back up. And this will be in the same sort of rep range, in this kind of what I'm going to label as minimum effective dose, because I do think that I am going to be on the low end of volume for my strength work. And that's the way I want to keep it. Again, when I lift super, super heavy, it takes basically everything out of me. I get ravenously hungry. My recovery is not always the best, so I'm going to keep the volume a little bit lower. I know how to lift, so now I just need to make sure that I'm adapting to load. So big, heavy single, back off set of 2 or 3, a back off set of 5. I'm going to start off my singles. I've been able to hit 295. Haven't done it with a pause yet, but I think that'll be there. So that's where I'm going to start that, and hopefully be able to progress each week. Then the back off sets of 2 to 3, or the back off 2 sets of 3 we'll start at 265 and see where that goes. And then the set of 5 will be at like 245. So that's kind of how that will break out. And then we're going to do a deadlift accessory variation. Since we just did squats, I want to do a deadlift accessory. I'm going to start out with barbell RDLs because I want to keep barbell RDLs in my program for as long as possible. I really like doing barbell RDLs, and with the way that I deadlift, needing a little bit more back and hamstrings, I want to make sure that I keep RDLs in as my deadlift accessory, at least to start. That's going to be for the first 2 weeks. I like to run the same exact program for at least 2 weeks, again, to make sure that I get kind of an acclimation week, and then I can make sure that I can hit the second week really, really hard. And then what I'm going to do with deadlifts is I'm just going to shift a little bit. And when it comes to week 3, I'm going to move barbell RDLs to another day. Actually, it's going to be on the same day, but then I'll be doing block pulls for my deadlifts. So just raising the bar up a little bit and pulling from slightly higher, kind of a rack pull, block pull, just to be able to work that overload. And then I'm going to work RDLs into there to make sure that I get the depth as well. So those will stay in for as long as I can possibly keep them. It'll probably be for at least this first block. Our RDLs will stay in, and then as we have to get more and more specific, then it will get more and more specific. But that's kind of how that's going to break out. That'll be 3 sets of 6 on the RDLs as well. Notice all my strength accessory work is going to start out at 3 sets of 6, and then as we progress, it's going to continue to go down. So the next week, I'm going to add a 4th set, add some volume in once I've kind of acclimated, do 2 sets of 6 and 2 sets of 4 to make sure that I'm making weight progressions, because that load does matter. So all of that accessory work will continue to go up in volume, or stay about the same in volume, but come down in reps so that weight goes up, so that absolute load is going up. That's kind of how that will break out. So with the rest of this session. So in week 1, because I'm doing the barbell RDLs, I'm going to add reverse hypers in. This is not something I typically use, but I think it can be a good way to get some more glute work in, but also decompress the spine. Take some pressure off of that with barbell back squats day 1, and then, RDLs day 2. I am going to want to take some pressure off the spine, but still work the glutes. So I'm going to add reverse hypers in, see how that goes. Again, set of 12, set of 8, as many as possible, kind of that, what do I call it? Minimum effective dose, high intensity training, whatever you want to call it, but making sure you get that work in. Then we're going to do chin-ups. I'm going to do those the same way. I'm going to try and get 12, 8, and then hopefully a weighted set of as many as possible. And then I'm going to do glute ham sit-ups. Again, decompressing that spine, working the hip flexors, and I'm going to do hip extensions or leg extensions, excuse me. So that's 2 sets of as many as possible each. Again, just getting some good pump work in to kind of finish that workout out because I didn't hit the quads and I want to keep hitting the abs and those hip flexors. So day 3, this is going to be competition deadlift day. Again, it's going to be set up the same exact way. Big, heavy single, 2 sets of 3, 1 set of 5. And then we're going to do a squat variation on this day. So this one will be Thursday or Friday, as far away from Monday as I can keep it. I'd like to do Thursday so that I can recover again by the next Monday. But what we're going to start out with is tempo squats. So the weight will be much lighter. I'm going to go 3-second descend, a 3-second pause, and then back up. So the weight will come down significantly, so it shouldn't be quite as taxing, but just getting to work in that sticky part of the lift down in the hole and being able to come out. So I'm going to pause down there, and that will be how I kind of work that. Then we're going to do barbell rows and overhead press this day, again, with the set of 12, set of 8, set of as many as possible sort of work, just to make sure we get that work in. Then what I'm going to do is what are called drag curls. So you just start with the barbell standing straight up. You drag it up your body and actually pull your elbows back. This makes my elbows feel great. It really works for some reason, really helps that elbow tendon, which tends to give me trouble when I bench press a ton. So I'm going to add that in to try and help that. This is about the only bicep work I'm going to do. With powerlifting, your biceps don't matter at all. So I don't really care about them, but this makes my elbow feel good. So I'm going to do that, 3 sets of as many as possible. Then I'm going to do lateral raises, either cable or dumbbell, whatever. And then I'm going to do some overhead extension work, again, just to hit that long head. And this is just going to be a fun pump to end out this workout. Then last one, day 4, again, all accessory work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do med ball thoracic extensions. So laying on the med ball, really trying to get that arch in my back, just working on that. 3 sets of a minute. Then I'm going to walking lunge. I'm going to bench glute bridge to hit the hamstrings a little bit, just get everything activated. That's really just a warm up. Then I'm going to do some box jumps, some band push-ups, and Jefferson curls. If you don't know what a Jefferson curl is, you elevate yourself into a deficit, and then you basically do an RDL, but you're rounding your spine over. You're going vertebrae by vertebrae down, rounding all the way over, and then vertebrae by vertebrae up, rounding your spine back up. So trying to strengthen myself in that rounded position. Because my deadlift, I do round my back a good bit. I want to actually strengthen that range of motion. So I want to work up some Jefferson curls. This is a great place to put it in on this sort of a day. So I get some explosive work. I get some work for my spine. Then I'm going to close grip bench press. That's going to be 3 sets of 6, putting me at 9 sets of, that'll be not 9 sets, 10 sets of bench press. Oh boy. So that's where my volume comes in there. Then I'm going to do inverted rows, body weight or with a weight on my chest. Again, trying to be more explosive and just work relative strength, explosive step ups, jumping actually out of that step up, leg curls, hit the hamstrings a little bit more. Then I'm going to do leg extensions, more tricep work, and a farmer's carry just to finish out. That'll be basically cardio and get a little pump and feel pretty good. So that's kind of how the program is going to build out. And then, like I said, those accessory movements, the volume is going to go up over time. I'm going to continue to increase that second accessory strength movement, whatever that secondary lift is. The volume will go up by a set each week, but the reps will come down. So absolute load will go up, reps will come down, but volume sets will actually go up. And then as that secondary movement gets more and more sets into it, the accessory work will cut down even further. I'll cut those down to 2 sets each, just one kind of acclimation set and then 1 set to failure, and then I'll be done. So I'm trying to cut the accessory volume down as much as possible. I give myself what I want, which is a hard set to failure to help me get a pump or help me with whatever adaptation I'm trying to make and just have some fun at the end of my workout. But those main strength movements on each day, that set of 1, the 2 sets of 3, and 1 set of 5 are going to stay for 5 weeks. That's how I'm going to do it. And the attempt is going to be to add weight to each of those every single week. And when I can no longer add weight, I know it will be time to switch it up or deload. So that's why I'm starting with squats at like 455. And by the end of 5 weeks, we got 460, 465, 470, 475. Hopefully we can hit like 480 or my previous max of 485 by the end of 5 weeks. That would be the goal. So by starting at 455 and trying to add 5 pounds each week, that is where I will get to. If I can't add 5 pounds, that'll be okay. I'll bring it down. I'll find a weight that I can add. For bench press, that's probably not going to happen, especially if I start at 295. I may have to work a few more weeks at, a longer, either a longer pause or something. But I mean, I've never benched more than 335, and that was more than a decade ago. So, and my ass was probably off the bench. So I'd like to get back to 315 and then kind of see where I go from there. With bench press, it's just going to be about how do I bench as much as humanly possible. And then with deadlift, I'm still trying to work out my starting spot. I just hit a new PR, so I definitely don't want to start right back there and try to PR every single week. I don't know if that's sustainable, so I'm going to pick a weight, maybe like 525, 515, and kind of see where I can PR from there. See if I can add 5 pounds. And then the back off work will add 5 pounds each week as well. So trying to make progress for at least 5 weeks. That's what I have mapped out right now, is those 5 weeks. Trying to make weight progress on my competition lifts. I'm going to make volume and load progress on my strength accessory work, my specific accessory work. So variations of bench, squat, and deadlift. We will make progress there and kind of adjust those variations as needed. Then after that, after this 5 weeks, maybe 6 if things go well and I decide to switch it up, that's where we're going to get much more specific. The accessory work will come down even more, and we will start to do more, probably even more squatting, more very strict deadlift variations like pause deadlifts, deficit deadlifts, the rack pulls. We'll probably add in like some pin squats instead of necessarily another full tempo squat day, or, box squats, or some different ranges of motion so that I can start to overload and really feel into that, and shortening those range of motions as much as possible to put as little stress. But that will be as we progress. Again, I'm going to take you guys through all of this, and you can see how my volume and frequency will start to change, and I adjust volume in other places as we go through these workouts. So I start out with, the at least 6 to 9 to 10 sets for my main strength movements, and that volume is going to go up over time because the accessory work is going to go up. So my other exercises in my program are going to have to come down to make sure that I can recover from every single thing that I'm doing. So the very specific, tricep and back work is going to come down over time to make sure that I'm able to recover and get really, really good. And as I get closer and closer, I need to continue to get more and more specific. Once the meet is over, then I can go back and train all the other things again. But for a specific purpose, Once I get about 6 weeks out, I'm going to really hone in, lock in, and be very, very specific. And accessory work will be very minimal. I will keep it in because, again, I like to train that way, but it will be very minimal to make sure that I can get all of the volume that I need, and I keep that volume in there for my very specific strength work, and I don't wear myself out. So that's the big consideration, is how much volume can you recover from? How much do you need per lift? What's your best lift? If you're very, very good at something, like you're a great deadlifter, cut the volume back. Do a few hard sets a week and focus somewhere else. Don't wear yourself out just doing heavy deadlifts for Instagram. So that's kind of my focus, is I want to try and get a little bit better at everything. Deadlift is probably the best one for me, so I'll probably keep the volume the lowest, and I really want to blow up my squat. So I'm going to see if adding some volume and frequency can add to that, because I know volume in one session is going to crush me. I tried some volume stuff right before this block, and I lasted 4 weeks, and I was done. My body said, nope, got me sick, hurt my knee. Not hurt it, but it was saying like, hey, that's enough of this shit. So I'm going to keep the volume low per session, but try to just add some frequency in to see how that feels, and we'll kind of go from there. But that's how this powerlifting block is going to break out. So I gave you guys about how the first 5 weeks is going to go. Follow along with me on Instagram at CoachQ_fitness. I'll be posting all of these workouts. I'll be putting up the workout for you to see and be able to do on your own, so that you can kind of see how powerlifting training goes, see if it gets you strong, see if we can keep up with each other, and you guys can follow along on this journey, and I will give you the insight into how I am recovering, what my recovery considerations are, what I'm doing with my accessory work. Am I adjusting things as I go? Because it is a constant process. This is not, programming should never be one size fits all. And I say, hey, here you go. You have this for 4 weeks, and that's all you get. Like, it's not going to change. You have to do it no matter what your recovery. So we're going to monitor recovery, see how we're feeling, see how life is going. Things might adjust, and I will keep you updated with how that works. But my point is, be flexible. And if you need to cut a session early or split a session into 2, you can absolutely do that. It will be okay. As long as the volume is maintained week to week, you should be good to recover week to week. So if you can get your squat and your block press in on one day, but your accessory work doesn't get done until the next day, totally fine. Or maybe you work out later at home and you can finish your accessory work there, or whatever it is. You can break the workouts up. Just make sure that you're hitting the intensities that you need to at each point, and that volume and recovery is matched. But we can kind of mix and match all this stuff up to really give ourselves the best chance to be successful. Don't try to keep fitting a square peg into a round hole. If it's not fitting, adjust. Let's make it fit you and your lifestyle. But I think with this minimum-ish effective dose style of training, I think it can fit your lifestyle. I think it can make you really strong, and I hope you follow along, and we're going to see how it goes. I'm testing this out as a case study on myself, so we'll see exactly what happens and see what kind of gains we can actually make based on the meet in April and the meet this time around, making a few adjustments on frequency and volume. So that'll be fun to try and check out, and we'll parse through all of that over on Instagram, and I'll probably do a few more podcasts about it. So if you enjoyed this one, if you enjoy, thinking about how to develop your training in a way that gets you enough volume, you can manage recovery, manage fatigue, manage your lifestyle, hit me up on Instagram. I think about this stuff a lot. I really love to personalize programs that fit your lifestyle and your goals. So let me know how I can help. And, I've shown you how I think about programming for myself and for others, but let me show you how I can specifically help you. So if you're interested, please hit me up. If you enjoyed this podcast, please like, rate, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. DM me on Instagram again at CoachQ_fitness. Let me know if you enjoyed this episode. Follow along with me throughout this powerlifting journey. Comment, ask questions. I want you guys to know what I'm doing, why I'm doing it, and how you can apply it to your life. So ask away. And until next week, lifters, keep getting strong.